Playing away at Port Vale, Theo Archibald has suffered a serious long-term injury, which has ruled him out for the rest of the season. It's a huge blow for the Earls. Nearing closer to his return, Theo is hit with yet another setback, requiring further surgery, which will rule him out for another extended period of time. We wish him a speedy recovery, and we know it must be a dark and lonely place.
It's a dark chapter in the story of my career, but it's not the end, not yet. We're in London Fields, which is my stomping ground really. Although it's kind of making me sad that the leaves are falling off the trees. My local park, come here and sunbathe and hang out with friends and get the occasional beer. That's the vibe, that's where we are. And it's so close to me, and it's normally, I mean obviously it's not very busy now, we're in sort of Thursday lunchtime in September, but that's a 5-minute stroll for me, so I'm here whenever I can, grab a coffee and sandwich and that kind of thing, and yeah, it's home really for me now. I mean, I think I've said that for quite a while, to be honest. I don't think anyone's really surprised, but I mean, I love it here. Obviously, the football club's had a big part to play in that, but aside from that, I've got a good life here, I've got a good group of friends here. I can't think of anywhere else I would rather live in the country anyway. Yeah, I've been very, very happy here for quite a few years now. There's no judgment on anything that you wear or sort of that kind of thing. You meet a lot of interesting people, fun people. Obviously historically East London was sort of probably the least wealthy part of the city for for decades and perhaps even centuries, to be honest. And in recent times there's just sort of an influx of young people, like young creative people. Everything that you see where we're walking down Broadway Market, and I mean you can stroll up to Dalston and around all of Hackney, and you go further east now as well. I think even you look around where the stadium is and sort of in Leyton and Leytonstone. I mean you could have bought a house in Hackney for 50 grand 30 years ago, and you're not going to buy a 2-bedroom flat for 10 times that now. So I think sort of that says a lot really. I've obviously thought about it, but if I was say still at Lincoln and this had happened and I was injured for 20 months, I'm not sure, well, I probably could have done it, but it would have been a hell of a lot more difficult. I think the fact that a life outside of sort of football, and when football is being injured and rehabbing, I think it's even more important, and it's been, you can semi-detach from it still, which I think if I was, stuck in another part of the world where I didn't have my friends here, or there wasn't as much going on, I think it would have been a hell of a lot more difficult. I mean, I found being fit at Lincoln difficult enough, so I'm not sure what it would have been like with back-to-back ACLs, to be honest. I mean, you can go through periods where you're not playing, and you go home at the similar time to I come home from, being in the gym or doing my rehab, and you've got the same amount of time to stew over everything that's not working out and so forth. So it's not something that is entirely alien to me. Obviously just actually being injured and not playing is the alien part. But I think, like we alluded to slightly earlier, having things going on and friends around and having other things that you do a few days of the week allows you to detach from that a lot easier than what would be otherwise. Being somewhere busy for me, period, helps. I don't like the don't really like the quiet, to be honest. I suppose if you need a distraction, then it's a distraction. The busier the better, I think, when you're going through 20 months of rehab. For me anyway, maybe not for everyone, but for me. Same as so many people in London, but I probably don't leave my sort of 2-mile radius, to be honest. Probably go as far up as Dalston, and then as far east as the stadium. And that's if you drew a circle around that's my circle, to be honest. I mean, if I don't come to this park, I go to Victoria Park. It's obviously just along Regent's Canal. I've got some friends that live south of the river. I know some people might not think it's south of the river, but I occasionally venture south of the river to Deptford or Peckham to see some friends. But other than that, I'll come as far as this bench, to be honest. That's it, yeah. My first memory was my parents had to go to work and they needed to send me somewhere during the day, and they sent me to a football camp, and I remember screaming and crying in the car because I didn't want to go, and my mum was like, well, you're going to have to, we're dropping you off here. So they dropped me off at this football camp, didn't want to go at all, but I think by the end of the first day I was like, I actually quite enjoy this. I do have quite a distinct memory of screaming and crying in the car and not wanting to get dropped off to a football camp. But I think that's kind of where it takes off, where you start playing with other kids for the first time. But I'm assuming I just fell in love with it from that day on, really. I got scouted by Celtic when I was 6. Again, hated it, and I remember Robert Wilson, he said I'll come back in a year, maybe when he's a tiny bit older, and he came back exactly a year to the day and asked if I wanted to come back again. I was playing for my boys club at the time, Park Villa, and then anyway went back to Celtic when I was 7 and enjoyed it a lot more, and then signed my first contract when I was, I guess, 9 or 10, whenever you're legally allowed to do that. And well, Celtic for, yeah, I guess 12 years of my life, and then eventually came down south, yeah. I was a good kid up until about 13, I think, and then was a terror for 4 years, to be honest. Yeah, I was pretty well behaved in primary school. There's quite a few people of the weeks, and I was sort of our year's ambassador, whatever you would call them, sort of looked after our year for a couple of times in primary school, and then the moment I went to secondary school, it just seemed to go pear-shaped for a number of years. You're a teenager, so there's testosterone and whatever flying around, and I think I was particularly awful, to be honest. My parents will probably tell you better than me, but yeah, good kid up until 12 or 13, and then awful until I left home at 17 or 18. I think I just grew up, to be honest, and I think leaving home probably does help. Even just leaving the environment of home, like Glasgow, was probably just kind of sucked into a certain world, and then when you leave it, you grow. It's kind of what happens when you leave country or so forth. I was full-time at Celtic for a couple of years. Brendan Rodgers came in, and I just knew I wasn't really going to get an opportunity in with the first team, and I would train with them quite a lot, but there's a lot of players at Celtic. I mean, so it's slightly different to England. There's not an under-23s. It goes from under-17s to under-20s, or the development squad, they call it. Even within the development squad alone, there's probably 40 or 50 players. There's loanees, then there's first-team players who aren't getting any minutes. It's quite a difficult environment to break into. And when Rodgers came in, I just knew, like, there's one or two who I think Mikey Johnson, Calvin Miller broke in briefly, but I knew I wasn't part of his plans for being brought through, and the opportunity came to go to Brentford. So it was either that or maybe go on loan for the last year of my contract at Celtic, and I didn't really fancy that. You go on loan to Scottish Championship. So many really talented players that I played with in my year or the years above me at Celtic, and it's quite a comfortable environment, but you don't play much first team football until you're maybe 20, 21, and the kids who have been at Motherwell or Aberdeen or something, they've got 50 or 60 games under their belt. You can't. That gap's really hard to bridge. Robert Rowan sold a really good setup at Brentford. Brentford's obviously an amazing setup. So I was quite lucky that I had the opportunity to go down there. But I'm delighted that I did. I think I probably wouldn't be here if I hadn't. If I'd stayed back home, then yeah, I'm not sure where I'd be. It's butterfly effect and all that. But good call, I think, to sort of make the plunge and move to England. The dream was always to play for Celtic. So I think when you're sort of in the environment and you probably know you're not going to break through, there's always an element of kind of disappointment. You're so young and you're still training every day and you're still with your friends, and it's a good environment to be in. So regardless of whether or not I felt like my opportunity had maybe passed at breaking through at Celtic, I don't think I ever didn't enjoy it. Maybe not quite as much in the sort of the final year I was there, just because there's not that next step that you can sort of envisage. I suppose in theory, maybe as I said, but like I've never really thought about it in too much depth, and I don't ever remember sort of being in a bad place in those sort of final year where I knew I wasn't going to break through, and I was kind of navigating maybe what was life after Celtic. I don't ever remember being in a position where I was like, oh God, and having self-doubt and that kind of thing. Maybe that's just because I was a really unreflective teenager, I'm not sure, but I don't ever remember that being the case. Brentford's a really ambitious football club. Things are done really well, and I walked into a good environment, and yeah, at the beginning just thrived on it really. I was signed for the B team, but I think I made my debut on the opening day of the championship away at Ipswich. So like, I obviously came in and made like a decent impression and thrived in my early time there. Yeah, Macclesfield was an experience. I went there. I mean, I needed to play football. I had a few appearances in my first year at Brentford. Went on loan to Forest Green. I came back to Brentford. Didn't play any minutes of football, and that's in the second half of my final season there. I needed somewhere to go and I needed somewhere to play. I think I was probably 19 or 20 at that point, and didn't have like much first team football under my belt at all. So Macclesfield was an opportunity to just go and play. I mean, it was actually the final season of that football club's existence. You know, we weren't getting paid. We'd have votes on a Friday after payday whether or not people wanted to play or not. I remember there was one Friday they were listening to the owner on TalkSport saying that all the players have been paid, and there's nothing untoward going on at the club, and we're all sat listening to it in the changing room like no one's been paid. And they were paying, because obviously we had loanees, so there was 5 loanees probably who were playing most of the games. He would pay the 6 other players who were starting, and the rest of the squad were left unpaid, because you've got guys who have in theory been paid, so how can they choose not to play? It was a mental year. All of the rubbish that was going on behind the scenes, there was a good togetherness, and it was an experience. And I was living up in Manchester. I didn't really have any friends up there. Day before training to find out where we'd be training. Sometimes we would be training in Stoke, which is an hour and a half's drive down the M6 from Manchester. Definitely a wake up call. I mean, I had a little bit of it at Forest Green when I was on loan at Forest Green. That was probably my first sort of welcoming into sort of like men's football in that sense. Obviously I'd spent some time at Brentford, but you're a B team player crossed with making some appearances for the first team, whereas at Forest Green you're part of the squad, and you know, there's no lunch at training at that time anyway at Forest Green, and that was definitely the first sort of reality check, in the sense that like it's not all just 4 or 5 chefs making 2 or 3 meals a day and like these really fancy training grounds and so forth like people think of when they think of the sort of the bigger football clubs and the facilities that they've got. Yeah, Lincoln wasn't my most enjoyable year. I'd signed a 3-year contract there. They tried to get me in January. Macclesfield rejecting money, 2 or 3 different bids, and then not paying us, which I couldn't wrap my head around at all. Then COVID happened, and I went into Lincoln quite late in the sort of COVID window, like towards the end of August. I wasn't fancied from the beginning, really. I think I didn't make one start in the league in the year I was there. From January through to the end of the season, I essentially just sort of sat in the stands, waited till the game was finished and then would drive back to Glasgow or drive down to London and come back on the Monday morning. I didn't have a good time there. My best friend was my PlayStation 5 controller for a year, which is, yeah, kind of funny to think about now, but a blessing in disguise, because obviously I spent my second year of my Lincoln contract on loan at Orient, and for the last 4 years I've been here, so maybe if things had gone differently, then I wouldn't have spent so much time here and life would be quite different. So I look at it I take it as a blessing in disguise now. But yeah, that year I spent there was miserable, to be honest. It's rubbish. I mean, I came in it was Kenny Jackett at the time. I actually really didn't know much about the club at all. I'd played against them once before for Macclesfield in the previous year, scored a 30-yard screamer, we won 3-0. But I really didn't know much about the football club at all. I was just absolutely desperate to get out on loan somewhere, and was maybe going to go up to Salford, and things weren't quite happening, and then within 24 hours my agent had said Orient are quite interested in bringing you in on loan. I'd said sounds good, and then I didn't even come down and I didn't meet anyone. Things were all signed and done before I'd even visited the place. So I came in not really knowing much at all, but I came into obviously a really good dressing room, a good environment. The rest is kind of history, to be honest, but it was 2021, so it was coming towards the back end of the lockdown year of COVID. Quite a lot of my friends were living in the city, so I had that sort of plus as well, having spent obviously a year in isolation in Lincolnshire. I can hang out with my friends on a Saturday or do that kind of thing, plus being at a really warm football club. The club's grown quite a lot in the years I've been here, but I think the fundamentals that it's been grown from, its foundations, remain the same as to when I first came into the football club. We started off the season really well and then went on a terrible run of form. You guys weren't here for that, but I think we went 14 or 15 games without scoring a goal from early December through to the start of February, which is mental, really. And then obviously the gaffer came in at the back end of that period. We were fighting relegation, and then had a big upturn in form. And then the next season, obviously we won the league. So certainly from that dark point, the trajectory's been virtually fully upwards for the football club for the last 3.5 years. It's been great to be a part of. Both my parents are musicians, but my dad was a runner before, funnily enough, snapping his ACL when he was 18. He was an 800 metre runner, sort of GB level 800 metre runner. Both of my cousins are obviously cyclists, a few Olympic medals from both of them. The gene pool comes from my granddad, who was a football player as well. And we're going back to the 40s now, so I'm not sure professional's the right word to use, but he's certainly playing for he played for Motherwell for a while, and certainly played at district level, or however it was kind of ran the Scottish boys level and then district level and then Motherwell for a little while. So I think thanks to probably him, and then having a few children that have gone into sport, I've obviously gone into football, but like I said, my two cousins, Katie and John, are both, incredible cyclists. They kind of dwarf any sporting achievement that I've managed to accomplish. Neither of my parents were football fans in that sense, to be honest. They're football fans now because, their only kid plays football, so they love it now. But growing up, football wasn't really, other than something that I loved to play, it wasn't really my dad doesn't support a team or anything like that. It wasn't like something that I was kind of brought in. It was just something that I was forced to go and do when I was 4 years old because they needed to go to work, and fell in love with it.
Still scarred by it.
Yeah. There was just a really strong camaraderie. We brought in a couple of really good characters, obviously George Moncur being one of them. Edie, although the results in the pre-season were not great, I do think there's something to be said for peaking too early and winning all your pre-season games. You see it so often, teams doing really well in pre-season and then getting absolutely battered at the start of the season. So we did it the right way around. But yeah, after a few games, I mean, we were obviously first in the table. I don't think we ever got pipped off top spot. Thank you. Yeah, after a few games, I felt like there was just no one was really going to catch us, to be honest. I remember us being in Portugal and the sort of the table tennis competitions and stuff. I don't know, it was just like, it was a really good dressing room. Just, it was really good people.
How you feeling about your semi-final?
Yeah, it's going to be a test. It's going to be the first test I've had so far in this tournament. I think after his resounding victory against Craig, he's probably feeling slightly overly confident, and I like to put him in his place.
Only get a nice pair of loafers out of the bag, you get a bit of polish on and a bit of dubbing. Good night. Thanks for coming.
What can you say?
I prefer not to speak. The club's always sort of, I think first and foremost, signed good people other than just good football players, and that always helps for having a good dressing room bond. But that year in particular, you had sort of players who'd won the National League with Orient combined with sort of fresher faces, and it just gelled really well with the new management team to be a obviously incredibly successful season. It's passion as well to win. I mean, I sort of see some of myself in that. I think that's why. I mean, that's why I've always sort of got on with him. I think in that sense, it's sort of like a real drive to win. I think it really, well, without that, I don't think you're going to achieve what he's done tactically. I've learned quite a lot from him. He has a good relationship with players off the pitch as well. You maybe wouldn't always necessarily think from just maybe like seeing him on the touchline, or maybe like from little snippets and interviews, how personable he is. But you know, I've had things go on in the sort of 3.5 years that I've been able to talk to him about really like openly. And I think having that kind of relationship with your players allows them to sort of, you know, well, they're going to play their hearts out for you. And certainly in my case, that's always been sort of the way it's been. He sort of allowed me to be me, and therefore when I'm on the pitch, I'll do my best for him. I think maybe 3 or 4 games without scoring a goal. Stevenage have managed to gain, I think, 11 or 12 points on us. And all of a sudden, I think we're maybe beginning to think, oh, if we peaked too early here, we need to sort of, you know, we need to get back on track. And we're playing against Doncaster, and we've not done anything for 65 minutes really. The rain's crashing down, and then obviously just, yeah, hit one from distance and it goes in. And there's just like a sense of relief, I think, more than anything. We hold out for a 1-0 win. It's just like, even though there's like all these parakeets flying around, it was just kind of like, other than obviously like the goal itself being a really good one, a couple other moments of just like the most torrential rain maybe you've ever seen in your life, all these parakeets flying around, that sort of made it a kind of memorable day. And the crazy Gillingham moment with the lights, and then sort of almost just not playing, no one was tackling each other at the end, and then we're all running on the pitch. It was obviously like those moments. A big one that stands out for me is we played Stockport away. One of the first big tests we had, they were a good side. Prats and Becks both scored. I think it was at that moment that in the changing room afterwards, we're like, we've got this really. A couple of Paul Smith's solo goals. The one against Salford where I think he must have been tripped up maybe 2 or 3 times in the box alone, and then obviously the final days where we won the league, and even just you know, Old Church Basement, that song that we played in the change room before every game. Hallelujah is all I need when I think of the goodness of your love for me. I actually heard it the other week for the first time in a long time, and it brings back like a real sort of flood of memories. Throughout that season, when we were getting closer to it, it's like, this will bond you for forever. I mean, like, you'll all move on to play for different clubs, and truck again. You all move on and play for different clubs, and your careers will go in different ways, but you'll always kind of be bonded by the season that you spent together, the season that you've won a league title. So I think until you do that again, nothing else is really comparable, to be honest. There's dark times in those successful seasons as well. Like I said, sort of those sort of periods where you weren't scoring any goals and you're beginning to question, like, not each other but yourselves, and sort of, can we actually do this and stuff. So like, there's always a sense of, I don't know, it's 8 or 9 months of like competing every day and fighting for the same thing. So when you actually finally get to achieve it, level of bonding that provides you with everybody, yeah. I'd spent 2 years in League 2 with Orient trying to get back into League 1. So when I was back in League 1, I was like, right, well, it's time for me to sort of obviously show that this is the level I'm supposed to play at least. I think for 30 odd games I did that. And then obviously picked up, kept not re-injuring, but did further damage to my knee to the point where the surgeons had said, like, it's time to get this done. And then, well, here we are 20 months later doing this. But yeah, for 30 games anyway, it was enjoyable. I was probably playing my best football, to be honest. I was confident in everything I was doing. I was playing wing back or on the wing, and yeah, I don't know, it was kind of coming towards the end of the season, was starting to discuss a sort of new deal. I was obviously out of contract with Orient at the time. Was beginning to talk about either a new contract with Orient or maybe like what my next sort of career move would be. I wanted to stay at Orient, obviously. I had surgery, and yeah, that was the end of that season at least. I've always had a strong connection with the football club. I've loved it since I first came in. There was nowhere else I really wanted to play, and also like Gaffer's really ambitious. I think most of the people I've played with have been ambitious, and it felt like the club was only going in one direction. And so I've never wanted to really move on or something. I've always wanted to kind of, I think when I first came in, I was like, let's get into League 1 with Orient, and then since being in League 1, it's like, well, let's get into the Championship with Orient. That's always sort of been my goal, certainly from a collective anyway. I think probably only Orient has maybe seen the best of me. I mean, I obviously played a fair amount of games at Forest Green or Macclesfield or whatever, but most of my best football has really been played here, certainly as I've been a more sort of consistent professional, or as an adult anyway, yeah. We played some of the slickest football I can remember, really. 2-0 going on 8, we played some incredible stuff. A good moment for me, just because obviously, like, this was my first goal of the season, and I think it was, I don't know if it was our first, it might have been our first win. I think it probably was, and so it was important in that sense, because it was a difficult start. I mean, I was fairly confident going into the season that we were going to be absolutely grand, but then you get tanked 4-0 at home to Portsmouth. I can't remember a couple of the other results, certainly weren't great. I think Stevenage at home we lost 3-0. So I mean, there was obviously like a few results that didn't go in our way, and you know, a couple of drubbings at home, which I'd never experienced, to be honest. I mean, our home record in the season before that was exceptional, really. We barely can remember a game where we conceded twice. So to concede 7-2 at home, maybe you're beginning to think, oh, I wonder what's going on here. So to win obviously our first game of the season, and then it allowed us maybe like somewhere to kick on from. And we did, to be fair. I mean, it was like, well, we've ended up finishing the season only a few points off the playoffs in the end. So I think for our first season being back in League 1, it was a pretty big success for the club, really, I would say.
Hi George. Most interesting people I've ever met, in terms of not just in football but in life, and he's never had doubts that he'll return, and neither have I. So it's like, I've never seen someone be so dedicated to what they do.
You don't want to put the camera on me.
No.
You want to put a camera on that man.
Oh, I know, 100%.
What a sight.
I'll go. So thankful for this football club for many things, and Charlie's just another one.
I'm not so sure there's many professional footballers out there that would be able to do what he's done.
Hey mate.
Morning, mate. Good.
How are you?
Yeah, not too bad.